it is a given, or at least it should be, that psychology is the prime driver of trading success. Yes, we require a functional entry system. We require a functioning money management system, and the extension of that is a functioning trade management system. But by and large, your response to the market is a psychological one. It is how you respond to stressful events and the emotions that come along with those that dictate how you will respond to what happens to you in the market. As a subset of that, the driver of that is our language. Our language shapes our thoughts, and our thoughts direct our actions. So the way we respond to day-to-day events is a function of the language we apply to them, because that language will direct the emotional response. It will direct the physiological response we have to events. When people are describing markets, they often use metaphors or analogues. They try and put the market into some sort of context to give it some sort of feature. Because the market is a featureless entity, it simply exists somewhere out there in space. We can no longer point to a market since markets have become electronic. The market largely exists in the domain of both the information you are receiving and the way your brain processes that information. It doesn't really exist anywhere else. But when traders begin to describe the market in any depth or any detail, often the way they describe it is as a form of conflict, and they often describe it as war, as if somehow buying and selling BHP was equivalent to the horrors experienced on the Western Front in the First World War. When we think a little bit deeper about this, it's easy to understand why this occurs. The majority of traders are male, and of that population of males, a large number will be immature. They will think that this is somehow self-emboldening, that this somehow raises their status if they think of the market as conflict and they are somehow winners in that conflict. You will often hear phrases like this: buy when the cannons are firing and sell when the trumpets are blowing. The sort of extension of this and the additional quote that is often used from Rothschild is that buy when there is blood in the street. If we are to think about this in any more depth, to look for something that is similar enough to trading in terms of not only its macro context, but also the psychology required to drive it and to be successful at it, the closest I can think of is golf. And you might think that that's really quite strange, but let me go through these next 3 points and you'll see what I mean. In golf, everybody plays the same course. If you are trading ASX 200 stocks and someone else is trading ASX 200 stocks, you're trading the same market. You both play the same course. So it is not the course that dictates the success or not. And this puts light to the notion that you often hear that to be successful, you must trade FX or you must trade crypto. That's a nonsense notion, and again is often put out there by children. By and large, golfers use the same equipment. Yes, there are nuances and variations, but the equipment is not responsible for the success. And at the end of the day, the player who makes the fewest catastrophic errors wins. It is the same in trading. The trader who makes the fewest catastrophic errors wins. So let's look at this in the context of a hypothetical trading system with a hypothetical equity curve. Here's our equity curve dating over about 10 years. You can see it begins with a period of drawdown. Our psychology is primed for this because we know that all trading systems begin with an initial drawdown. This happens because you take your losing trades first. You have to take your losing trades first. That's simply the nature of trading. You can't park them somewhere and hide them. So if ever you're presented with an equity curve that does not immediately go into drawdown, there's probably only one of two possible explanations for that. It's Ponzi schemes, a la Bernie Madoff. If you don't know who Bernie Madoff is, Google is your friend. Or It's simply a con. It's a fake equity curve. And there are fake equity curves all over social media. So let's assume we're happy with this period of initial drawdown. Doesn't phase us too much, doesn't rankle our psychology, we don't get into a tiz. The system's then profitable for several years. It has this gradual upward slope. And we're quite happy with that because it doesn't enter periods of extended drawdown. And when it does clip down, they're quite minor, quite mild, and they don't last very long, and the system recovers to make a new equity peak. But then we encounter this period, and this period upsets us. It upsets our management of the system. Now, we could go off and begin to tinker with the entry system, because losing trades are a function of the system picking losing trades. So if we never had losing trades, we'd never have drawdown. The unfortunate thing is that is unrealistic. So we have to find a way to manage the course better, and to do so in a way that does not damage the underlying tenet of the system. Because when you have a trading system, it does not matter what your win-loss ratio is. Sooner or later, if you take enough trades, you will have a losing cluster. Because if you have enough repeats of a trial, what seems improbable becomes inevitable. That's simply the way natural systems and numbers work. And in this system here, I've highlighted these three profound drawdowns. Particularly the last one will be quite damaging to the psyche. So how do we fix that without undertaking any wholesale change to the system? And there is an easy answer. The answer is that we say to ourselves, well, if the system goes into a drawdown for a period of, say, 6 weeks, and it might be X percentage, what I will do is I will cut the risk on the system until the equity curve turns positive again. And this is what that equity curve looks like. You'll notice the shape is largely the same, and this will become more apparent in the next slide. There are still drawdowns. It is impossible to get rid of drawdown, but we are playing the course in a way in which we minimize the number of catastrophic errors that impact upon us. And you can see the end result of this in the terminal value on the extreme right-hand side of the chart. So if I overlay these two curves, we get this. The curves are identical right up until the point at which we begin our drawdown management scheme. All we've simply done is traded the equity curve in such a way that we try and minimize the drawdown. There's a point to note though. You can't just simply say, I will halve the risk on losing trades, because you do not know what those trades will be. All trades during this management period will have lower risk. So that means winning and losing trades, and you need to be aware of that. But you can see there's a marked difference in the curves. And when we look at a few basic statistics, we can see that. We can see the dramatic difference in drawdown. This is much easier for us to manage. So even though we have a system that is profitable over a very long period, it has particularly in this drawdown. That drawdown is very debilitating. So we're falling into the trap of catastrophic errors. We do not know that that drawdown will occur. All we know is that drawdown will occur. We don't know when, nor do we know the dimension of it. But what we do know is that we can have strategies in place to manage it and to reduce the impact upon our psyche. We can do this simply because we've shifted the emotional focus. All of a sudden, this has gone from conflict to simply managing a round of golf. So we have none of those debilitating emotions that surround the notion of conflict. There is no desire to go for broke. It is simply, I'm managing my business. And when I map the drawdown of the two curves, we get this. And you can see the effect of simple techniques. And they are very, very simple techniques. So if we go back to the original premise, All traders play the same course, but the trader who makes the fewest catastrophic mistakes wins. And what is interesting is you do not have to make dramatic alterations to the way you play the game to begin to minimise those number of catastrophic errors.